Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing Changes by the band Catapilla.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So currently, as you're watching this video, I am not here. I'm actually in Germany attending the night of the Prague Festival, which is very interesting and probably very exciting for me. So hopefully I'm having a lot of fun, and if I'm not, well, you're not gonna know about that. I'm just gonna fake it. But anyway, here's my favorite bits from this album. So, not considering bands which only have one album in their discography, there are only, or at least until now, there have only been two bands up until now that listening to their albums from the list has finally concluded my entire discography acquaintance with them. And those two albums are of course Moon Safari when I finished their entire discography when we listened to Himmelbanken Volume 1, as well as Pink Floyd when I finally got to listen to A Momentary Lapse of Reason by them. And now finally we're getting to conclude yet another band, and this one is special because we've actually listened to their entire two-album discography through and throughout this list. And these guys are of course Catapilla, and today we're gonna listen to their 1972 album titled Changes. And as for ironic album titles, I think that this one really takes the cake, because for changes that actually happened from their last album to this album, they are basically non-existent. The only thing I can really think of that changed is maybe that there is a bit of a better production quality on this album, but honestly that is all. And I'm not even saying that in a bad way, I'm just saying it as a pretty humorous anecdote. Much like their debut album, this one also features the same cast of members, with of course being spearheaded by Anna Meek with her vocals that sound quite eerily similar to Jefferson Airplane's Grey Silk, and of course we also have Robert Culver with his various saxophones being played on this album, with these two players basically being the leading ones for the entirety of the music found on here. And most of the music to be found on this album is overall very spacey, very psychedelic and very improvisational, and while I do believe that there is a lot to love about the music found on here, it does get quite boring kind of fast. And I think that this album is definitely a prime example of an album that would benefit from a live performance. Of course, experiencing an album in live performance, you have to be there live, and that's because there's a lot of different things that you can add to the experience, like sensory things such as lights or effects, or just the spaciousness of the environment and the people you're experiencing it with. But as it comes down to it, as a studio album being recorded, I don't think that it quite reaches the same effect. But there's one track on this album that actually was able to capture my attention and put me into its musical bliss, and that's the first track called Reflection. This one, despite on its surface sounding a lot like the rest of this album, I believe it to be a much more realized and very personal song to experience. This song starts off with one pretty basic riff and it stays for a while, and when I say a while I mean 8.5 minutes, but that time is actually well spent because everything is just building upon, there's very interesting solos, and you really get into the mood the band wants you to be in. And while the bass, the keyboards and the guitar all really well play their parts, I do believe that the ones leading this song are actually the almost maniac voice of Anna Meek, and of course the various saxophones being used, as well as the drumming. Brian Hansen on here, he plays the drums and percussions, and he sounds quite well on here, definitely improving from their first self-titled album. Just listen to him on this first track, it's pretty amazing. He plays one groove but he always changes things up, and there's a lot of very really interesting feels he pours upon the rhythm section, and it's very lovely, and it's quite unfortunate to see that it kind of loses that charms in the next upcoming songs. But the real treat and actual payoff of this song actually happens when you finally get to the bottom of this huge rabbit hole you've been falling for 8.5 minutes, and that's a very interesting musical place that does actually sound quite different for the rest of what came before it. Suddenly the drums, they just dissipate like they've never been here, and we have the electric guitar playing its simple chords with a bunch of saxophone flourishes on top. The bass line, it gets the lower register all well made, and then we are introduced, of course, again to Naomi's vocals. The vocals in this section, they are amazing, and they're also enhanced by a very interesting echo effect that just makes it all the more grandiose and very much godlike. And this is especially the reason why this song is more special than the rest, because it somehow manages to capture a very interesting and very intimate feeling with the listeners themselves. And I think that in its essence, the reason why this track works so well is the contrast found on it. A lot of times I talk about contrast in songs, but I don't really feel like I'm making the emphasis on why it's good and what it actually means. And this song is a definitive example of just that. You have two sections in this song. They're not that hard to realize. There's the 8.5 minute long, and then there's the 4 minute long section at the end. And the two, they sound quite different, but when you put them together, they sound really good, and the contrast that is created between them is what makes this one whole piece more special to me. Put them as individual tracks, they're gonna be fine. Put them together, they're gonna be divine. And this moment of catharsis is something that Catapilla never really seemed to recreate, because their last album, well, it didn't have that, and the 3 remaining songs on this album also don't have the same effect. But from the second song onwards in this album, my opinions of this album are basically much the same as what I said about their debut in episode 48. The music is highly psychedelic, it is very monotonous, and there's a lot of things which aren't progressive to be found on it. Much like the debut album, Naomi's vocals are amazing. They sound really good, but the thing is, they're really underutilized or misutilized throughout the album. They are either put into the really odd sections which don't feel like it's the right time for her to do whatever she's doing, and they should have really put their focus on actually matching the vocals to the melody that's going around it. But yes, I do wish I had more to say about this album, but the thing is that I really don't. A lot of my opinions on it were already expressed back in episode 48, and despite my inability to actually create good videos back then, I still think that you can go ahead and watch that video to get a better understanding of what I think of Catapilla's music. But now that I've come to realize and know all of their discography, I can definitely say that they're not that special, but we're somehow giving a very exquisite outlook by many people, maybe due to good marketing or their obscure status. So yeah, I was glad to know you, Catapilla. Thank you so much, and don't expect to see me anytime soon. But when speaking about this cover, this is something much more special. So you might have noticed in the video's thumbnail, or even in the intro, or even right now next to me, you're seeing the cover, but it doesn't really conform to what we usually think a cover should look like. Usually when you search up this cover online, you'll find that it basically has a black corner at the right top corner of it. But the thing about it, it doesn't actually have any corner to it, because the cover is being eaten by the Catapilla himself. The black color is actually the color of the inner gatefold for this album, which if you close this one on a vinyl form, you'll see it as a black corner. Martin Dean, who made this cover, was very innovative in the way that he created it, and I always love when album cover artists actually do these kinds of things. Of course, the Catapilla fun on here is munching away at the very crunchy leaf that is the cover to be found on here, and as you can see, if you open up this cover, you can actually see the backside of said Catapilla, and I think that it just goes ahead and sells the effect even more. And you know, if you ask me, these are the best types of covers. Why do the same thing all over again? Why create the basic rectangular cover that everyone knows about? Create something different, do something new. If we so much love progressive music, why not do progressive cover art? It could be so fun, and these types of examples are ones that I really enjoy, and this one is definitely going into one of my favorite covers I've seen on this list so far. So at least from a personal standpoint, I do believe that this album is slightly better than their debut one. It is more catchy, and of course the reflection bit at the beginning is one that I will remember and come back to quite often, so it's gonna get a very fine rating of 8 out of 10. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to Icarus by Icarus. I of course want to thank my lovely supporters over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Wanham and Wrist of Kings, you are the best. And if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. We're heading for a goal right now, so if you want to pledge for us to actually reach that goal over on the Patreon, I'd love it if you do so. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.